Bubba's hanging on. Here comes Hamlin. Driving that car with no power steering. Bubba's in the wall. He's fighting his boss for this win. Chase Elliott comes through on the inside. Oh my goodness. Chase Elliott.
Denny Hamlin and Bubba Wallace were supposed to be teammates chasing the same goal, but at Kansas they turned into rivals. Hamlin, the co-owner of 2311 Racing, took away Wallace's chance at victory and shocked fans everywhere. The finish wasn't just about racing, it was about trust, loyalty, and a battle inside the same team. Denny Hamlin has worn two hats for years now. On Sundays, he is the driver of the number 11 car, chasing wins and a championship with Gibbs Racing. But behind the scenes, he is also the co-owner of 2311 Racing, the team he built with NBA legend Michael Jordan. Bubba Wallace is the face of that team, the driver tasked with delivering results and putting 2311 on the map.
Restart. Obviously the last pit stop was the difference for us, but those guys did a fantastic job all day. Just had one kind of hiccup, well, two, but they really worked well, and unfortunately,
That double identity works smoothly most weeks. Hamlin is a competitor, Wallace is a competitor, and both want to see the organization succeed. But when both drivers are side by side for the win, things get complicated. That was the exact situation at Kansas. Hamlin wasn't just racing another opponent. He was racing his own driver, a man whose career he helps guide, whose paycheck comes from the same team budget Hamlin helps control. Hamlin has always said that once the visor goes down, he is simply a driver. He has one responsibility to win, and when it came down to the final laps at Kansas, he lived up to that creed. The final lap at Kansas was chaotic. Wallace was in position to grab a finish that could move him forward in the playoffs, but Hamlin saw an opening. He made his move, racing hard as always, and in the process made contact that cost Wallace the chance at the win. Hamlin crossed the line victorious, but the cameras immediately shifted to Wallace's car, limping away from the opportunity he had been fighting for. Fans instantly lit up social media. Some claimed Hamlin had betrayed his own team. Others argued that Hamlin did exactly what any racer should do, go for the win no matter what. But everyone agreed on one thing. The optics were messy. Hamlin celebrated the win, but the questions began almost immediately. How do you balance being the man in victory lane with being the man whose driver just had his playoff hopes crushed by your own car? As Hamlin and Wallace battled side by side, both cars washed up track. Wallace got the worst of it, brushing the wall hard, collapsing his speed in the corner. Hamlin slowed from fighting the slide. Meanwhile, Elliott squeaked through the bottom, made contact with Hamlin's side, and surged ahead to take the win.
Wallace is still hanging on. Hamlin has come up as a second.
Elliott later said he simply refused to lift, even though all three were wide open on corner exit. He passed both Toyota cars in that final corner, crossing the line just inches ahead of Hamlin. Hamlin fell short of his goal. The 60th Cup Series win tying Kevin Harvick slipped from his grasp. He admitted afterward, "I wanted it bad." But in the end, he not only lost the win, he lost control of the narrative inside his own team.
I'd love to get my 60th here at the track where I got my very first start, and wanted to do it with two different.
Bubba Wallace was furious. He didn't wait until pit road. He flipped the bird as he limped off track, flipped it at the man who put him there. In the post-race interviews, his tone was sharp, his words loaded with betrayal.
2 years ago, I'd probably say something dumb. I mean, he's a dumbass for that move, for sure. I don't care if he's my boss or not. But we're going for the win. I hate that we gave it to Chevrolet there.
Hamlin didn't dodge responsibility entirely. On the Actions Detrimental podcast, he said he felt both driver and owner dynamics at play. He claimed Wallace was upset with Hamlin the racer, not Hamlin the co-owner of 2311. He defended the move. Entering turn 3 side by side, both took a line that washed upward. He admitted in hindsight he might have raced Wallace differently. Even so, the damage was done. Trust between driver and boss cracked publicly. This was more than a single race. It was a playoff elimination. Wallace entered the race below the cut line and gained exactly 1 point. He leaves 26 points down. His hopes now rest on Charlotte's Roval, a road course that punishes mistakes. He now must perform under maximum pressure, emotional, technical, psychological. Meanwhile, Hamlin emerged from Kansas with his playoff buffer intact. He increased his margin over the cutoff line to 48 points. He's likely safe for now. But what he can't escape is a new narrative, a team owner who raced his driver, a boss who undermined trust. At the same time, Chevrolet gained a giant win in manufacturer standings. The front-running Toyotas had led nearly every lap combined, but they couldn't lead the one that mattered. The loss stings not just for 2-3-1-1, but for Toyota's entire playoff push. Within 2-3-1-1 racing itself, the roles are muddled. Wallace was supposed to be the face of the team. Hamlin was supposed to be the mentor and leader. Instead, the line between boss and rival is erased. Now the question is, can they move past this? Can Wallace still commit to a team that just wrecked his race? Can Hamlin repair the fractures he caused? Fans weighed in instantly. Twitter erupted. Some sided with Wallace's emotion, others defended Hamlin's aggression. No one ignored Chase Elliott. He won a championship-level playoff race while everyone else was tearing into each other. Hamlin, reflecting after time in the car, admitted he'd want to race Wallace differently if given another shot. Perhaps that's real growth. But racing isn't about second chances. If you go deeper, Hamlin's lack of power steering becomes more than a mechanical issue. It becomes a metaphor. Under immense strain, his own systems failed, and in desperation, he lashed out at the very car he co-owned with Wallace. Wallace's middle finger, his voice, his anger, they weren't just reactions. They were direct reflections of lost confidence in the system. In post-race comments, Hamlin said he had no problem with the gesture. He positioned it as Wallace's reaction to Hamlin the driver, not to Hamlin the team owner. But for many, that partition feels flimsy. Now, as the field heads to Charlotte's Roval, the emotions will run hot. Wallace will carry a chip on his shoulder, Hamlin will carry a burden of public scrutiny, Elliott will carry momentum, and all of NASCAR will be watching 2-3-1-1 closer than ever. Kansas didn't give us a clean finish. It gave us a fracture in one of the sport's most fragile relationships. A boss raced his own driver not behind the scenes, but out in the open for all to see. That moment didn't just cost a win, it cost trust. Chase Elliott may have won the race, but what really happened in Kansas was chaos. It was betrayal. It was a team shaken at its core. And as the playoffs march on, this fallout might be more damaging than any finish line. So I'll ask you, was Kansas just hard racing where both pushed too far? Or did Hamlin cross a line and cost his own team its future, chasing his legacy? Because however this ends, one thing's clear. The story is far from over.
Bubba in the wall. Hamlin thinks he's got it. Elliott says, no, you don't. I'm going through to the round of 8 with a win. My second at Kansas Speedway.
Chase Elliott lined up in 8th place for the final restart at Kansas Speedway. Most fans thought the race was already decided. 2 laps later, he crossed the finish line first after one of the most aggressive moves of the 2025 season. This is the story of how a struggling playoff driver turned everything around with a single bold decision on the final lap of the Hollywood Casino 400. The race took place on Sunday, September 29th, 2025 at Kansas Speedway. It was the second race in the round of 12 playoffs, and the pressure was building on every driver still fighting for a championship. Chase Elliott came into this race carrying a lot of weight on his shoulders. 5 years have passed since Elliott won his only championship back in 2020. Since then, many people have questioned whether he can still compete at the highest level. Critics say he struggles with the next-gen cars that NASCAR introduced. His road course skills, which used to be his biggest strength, have faded as drivers like Shane Van Gisbergen have shown what real road course domination looks like. Elliott did manage to win earlier this season at Atlanta in late June. That victory happened in front of his home crowd and secured his spot in the playoffs. But after that win, consistency became a major problem. He finished 3rd at Watkins Glen and managed a 5th-place finish at New Hampshire after starting way back in 27th position. However, these bright spots were mixed with many disappointing results. After his Kansas win, Elliott spoke about the importance of momentum in racing. He told reporters, "A lot can happen in 10 weeks, and that can be the difference in somebody being mediocre to potentially getting on a hot streak, or, even a team collectively getting better throughout the course of that time." The Kansas race started with Chase Briscoe on pole position. Briscoe led the first 20 laps before Denny Hamlin took control of the race. From that point forward, Hamlin looked completely in charge of the event. Stage 1 ended with Hamlin in victory lane. He led 55 of the 80 laps in the opening stage. Kyle Larson finished 2nd, and Elliott came home 3rd. During this stage, Cody Ware crashed hard into the wall when something broke on the front of his car. The incident brought out a caution flag and gave teams a chance to make adjustments. Stage 2 played out much like the first stage. Hamlin completely dominated and won again. By the end of the second stage, Hamlin had led 93 of 165 laps, which is more than half the race. Christopher Bell finished second, followed by Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. At this point, 9 of the top 10 running positions were held by playoff drivers, showing just how competitive the field was. When the final stage began, Elliott briefly took the lead from Hamlin. However, Hamlin's car was simply faster, and he quickly moved back to the front. Everything seemed to be going Hamlin's way until problems started developing with his race car. Around 50 laps from the finish, Hamlin's power steering system began failing. Power steering helps drivers turn the wheel easily at high speeds. Without it, the car becomes very difficult to control, especially on a fast track like Kansas. Despite this mechanical problem, Hamlin continued leading and refused to give up his position. The race stayed relatively calm until J.J. Yeley crashed after contact from Carson Hocevar. This brought out a caution flag. On the following restart at lap 217, disaster struck for several playoff contenders. Noah Gragson and Joey Logano made contact entering turn 1. This triggered a massive chain reaction crash. Cars involved in the wreck included Austin Cindric, Ryan Blaney, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Kyle Busch, A.J. Allmendinger, Carson Hocevar, Austin Dillon, and Ty Gibbs. For Cindric especially, this crash was devastating. He ended up finishing 33rd, which put him 48 points below the playoff cutoff line. Hamlin maintained his lead after the crash. Christopher Bell emerged as his biggest challenger as the laps wound down. With about 15 laps remaining, Kyle Busch's tire came apart, forcing another caution flag. This caution set up the most important decision of the race. Most of the lead drivers chose to take only 2 new tires during this pit stop. This approach allows teams to get back on track faster and maintain their track position. Alan Gustafson, Elliott's crew chief, made a different call. He brought Elliott down pit road and put 4 brand new tires on the car. This decision dropped Elliott back to 8th position for the restart, but it gave him a significant advantage in tire grip and speed. Gustafson explained his thinking after the race. He said, "The 11 was better than us all day. The 20 was better than us all day. We needed to have an advantage over them to beat them. I wanted to give Chase an opportunity to have a distinct advantage over them." However, the race was far from over. Carson Hocevar spun his car, which forced the race into overtime. In NASCAR, overtime means they continue racing until the race can finish under green flag conditions without caution. During the first overtime restart, one of the scariest crashes of the season occurred. John Hunter Nemechek made contact with Zane Smith in turns 3 and 4. Smith's car was pushed into the wall and immediately went up on its side. The car then rode along the wall vertically for the entire length of turn 4, with the driver's side facing down toward the track surface. The car eventually fell back onto the track and flipped over multiple times before coming to rest. Safety crews rushed to the scene, but Smith was able to climb out of the destroyed car on his own. He was checked at the infield medical center and released without serious injuries. Smith spoke to reporters after the incident. He said, "It was a wild ride, no doubt. I just get wrecked by the 42. He just drives through me and then I was sliding on the wall. It was violent, no doubt, but we had such a fast car today. It's just a bummer." The crash forced officials to stop the race completely with a red flag, so crews could clean up the debris. After the cleanup, NASCAR prepared for a second overtime restart. Bubba Wallace and Christopher Bell lined up at the front, with Denny Hamlin close behind and Chase Elliott still back in 8th with his 4 fresh tires. The green flag waved and Wallace and Bell immediately battled door-to-door for the lead. This aggressive racing created an opening for Hamlin, who got a big run down the backstretch. The situation created an interesting dynamic since Wallace drives for 2311 Racing, a team co-owned by Hamlin and Michael Jordan. Wallace was racing his own boss for the win. On the final lap, Wallace pushed Bell aside and grabbed the lead at the white flag, but Hamlin came charging with a huge run, dove inside entering turn 3, and made contact with Wallace. The contact pushed Wallace toward the wall, forcing him to lift off the throttle. While this battle unfolded, Chase Elliott was charging through the field. Those 4 fresh tires gave him incredible speed. Coming off turn 2, Elliott squeezed between Chase Briscoe and Christopher Bell and shot to the bottom of the track. As they raced into turn 4, Elliott pulled alongside Hamlin and door slammed him hard. The contact broke Hamlin's speed just enough. Elliott crossed the line first by 0.069 seconds. One bold move sent Elliott to the round of 8 and left Hamlin heartbroken after leading 159 laps.
Oh, here we go. Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Yes, sir. Gibbs goes around. Yellow zone.
Joe Gibbs Racing is in chaos, and Denny Hamlin just threw gasoline on the fire. In what's quickly becoming one of the most heated internal feuds of the 2025 NASCAR season, Denny Hamlin has openly called out Joe Gibbs Racing over its lack of leadership and unclear team dynamics, putting the spotlight on a moment that may have already reshaped the outcome of the playoffs. It all began at New Hampshire during the opening race of the round of 12. Running in 11th place on lap 110, Hamlin was battling his JGR teammates Ty Gibbs and Christopher Bell. That's when things took a turn. Hamlin slipped underneath Gibbs and clipped his left rear, sending the number 54 Toyota into the turn 1 wall. The crash forced Gibbs out of the race and triggered a caution that changed the tone for the rest of the day. But the wreck was just the spark. What followed was a full-blown inferno. My teammate shouldn't be the hardest car to pass. Hamlin, clearly frustrated, didn't hold back on his Actions Detrimental podcast the following day. Speaking with a tone that made it clear he'd reached a breaking point, Hamlin questioned the culture at JGR and laid bare the internal dysfunction plaguing one of NASCAR's most elite teams.
You know, my teammate out of the playoffs should not be the hardest car on the track to pass.
Venting over the fact that Gibbs, who is no longer in the playoff hunt, was still defending his position aggressively. Hamlin wasn't just venting about one race. He was exposing a deeper issue, the absence of clear team rules. With 3 JGR drivers still in the playoffs, Hamlin, Christopher Bell, and Chase Briscoe, he expected a level of strategic cooperation. What he got instead was resistance from within. Ty Gibbs, for his part, didn't stay silent. After being wrecked and taken out of the race, he radioed in a defiant "game on," signaling that he wasn't going to back down just because he's out of playoff contention. It was the clearest indication yet that the Gibbs-Hamlin relationship had fractured. And the wreck didn't just cost Gibbs a finish, it potentially fractured the team at the worst possible time. The playoffs are a make-or-break moment, and internal drama can undo even the best performance on track. Team owner Joe Gibbs attempted to downplay the situation, telling Fox's Bob Pockras that the drivers should handle it themselves.
It's always the drivers that have to handle that. They're the ones that got the wheel, and so I think that's always the case.
But his non-committal response only added fuel to the fire. For Hamlin, that's not good enough. He made it crystal clear on his podcast. He wants leadership to step in.
What I want to happen is just leadership step in and tell us, what do you want us to do?
Hamlin demanded.
If you want us all to just race each other cutthroat, no matter what your position is in stature in the standings, we can definitely do that. Like I expect.
The deeper issue here isn't just a wreck or a bad day on the track. It's the power dynamics within Joe Gibbs Racing. Ty Gibbs is more than just a teammate. He's the grandson of the team's founder and owner. That family tie makes every interaction with him more delicate and more volatile. As Adam Alexander pointed out on NASCAR's Inside the Race, this is a nightmare scenario for Joe Gibbs. You're less than 2 months removed from Denny signing a contract extension that will keep him at JGR for the rest of his career. He noted, "This isn't just about Ty Gibbs. It's about Denny Hamlin, the face of the franchise." Alexander added that Hamlin doesn't often make noise for personal gain, so when he does speak up, it carries extra weight. He's not the guy to bang on the table or pull out his resume, so when he speaks, people listen. At the core of Hamlin's frustration is a brutally simple truth. The stakes are too high for selfish racing. With stage points playing a critical role in advancement, every position counts. So when Hamlin was forced to fight his own teammate harder than any rival on the grid, just for 11th place, it sent a clear message. JGR isn't aligned.
I will play by those rules, but I've been told in the past, if you're not in it, you do everything you can to help your teammates that are in it.
Instead, he found himself battling a teammate like it was the Daytona 500. It's not just fans or media asking hard questions. Hamlin himself is pointing fingers at the top. He openly admitted that the real issue is a lack of leadership direction. But that begs the question, why haven't those rules already been made clear? In past seasons, top-tier teams have navigated the playoffs with structured plans. Drivers knew their roles. Whether it meant yielding positions or staying out of the way, it was clear. But at JGR, it seems like that structure doesn't exist, or at least isn't enforced. What makes this blow-up more significant is the timing. JGR had just dominated round 1 of the playoffs. They were poised to make a legitimate title run with multiple drivers in contention. But now, instead of building momentum, they're dealing with headlines, finger-pointing, and the kind of tension that can fracture a garage. And let's not forget, this isn't the first time Gibbs and Hamlin have clashed. They've had subtle disagreements before, usually behind closed doors. But this one, it's out in the open. The wreck, the radio jab, the podcast rant, it's all public.